This is a quick video tutorial showing sculpting of Freddy Fazbear. Okay, I'm rotating around to the left so I can draw the profile of his face. So that's the front profile and up, and the back profile with a bit of a sort of chubby cheek and up. Now rotating around to the front, I'm again going to draw a profile with a bit of a cheeky cheek, and I'm going to make the object symmetrical. And as we can see what we've got there, I can drag his cheek back and up, remove a bit of the distortion around here. When we're happy with that, we can move on to the next stage. Okay, next I'm going to draw his snout, and for that I'm going to use a blob shape, which is a bit like that. Switch to two views so I can see what I'm doing in the side view. Now for the blob, it's going to be thick and slightly squared off. Just drag the controls around a bit. Let's switch to a 4 view so you can see what we're doing everywhere. I'm going to rotate that shape and squeeze it in a bit into the face. We now need a duplicate of this object, so I'm going to copy and paste it mirrored. Let's have a nose, which I'm going to make out of a cube, but with a large bevel. It makes it a bit more nose-like. We can also use these sort of shapes for the teeth, so I can copy and paste a tooth shape. Notice you can change the shape of the cubes with the sliders on the side. I'm using the keys W, E and R to quickly switch between move, rotate and scale. So there's W for move. I use Control C and Control V for quick copy and paste. Okay, here we've made two teeth. I'm going to drag one of the teeth onto the other one to make a group. Rename, if you use the object properties to rename an item, which will help. Tooth 2. Now let's try that, copying the group again. Edit, paste mirrored. There we go. Several teeth. Let's do the jaw next. I'm going to do that with a line object primarily. Just going to rotate that into place, and it's thicker at one end than the other, so I'm going to make the front end thick and the back end a bit thinner using the sliders on the side. I can then shape that curve a bit more, give it more of a jaw shape, smooth it a bit more, and pull it up into the jaw. And again, if we do the paste mirrored trick, object, paste, edit, paste mirrored, gives us a jaw. I'm now going to drag all the teeth together into one group, and I'm going to attempt to copy all of them and then rotate them to make the teeth at the bottom. This works fine. Just going to save quickly to make sure we don't muck anything up. Okay, next let's make a quick top hat. Let's use a cylinder this time. It says cylinder. Again, we can use the sliders to quickly shape it, shape the height, maybe add a little bit of a smooth bevel onto it. And we want another cylinder in the same place, so I'm going to use Control-C, Control-V to make another cylinder with a slightly larger radius and a much lower height for a hat. Okay, let's cut some. Let's not cut some eye holes quite yet. Let's draw an ear. Again, I'm going to use the lathe object, and I'm going to draw half an ear, and then tweak the shape using the widget move tool a bit, and make that a bit thicker. So you see the normal behavior for the widget move tool is to spin a single line around its center. Don't move that to place. Let's just give it a bit more of a rotate. And again, copy and paste mirrored. Okay, the next thing we need, I'm going to fill in the bottom of the mouth, and for that I'm going to use a slab object to help me get in there and see what's going on. I'm going to use the groups panel to hide the shapes we don't need. My slab is basically just a flat template in any shape we need. We're going to give it very low depth and rotate it into place. That just gives some solidity to the inside of his mouth. Once we've got a model established, quite often we don't actually need the grid anymore. It's obvious where the front left side goes. Okay, I'm just going to pop up the resolution on his head a bit. There's more than one way to make the eye socket. The first way is probably just to do a bit of addition and subtraction on the model. So I'm going to try doing that way first and see how it goes. If it's fine, we don't have to do any more. But we may decide we want to use a slightly different method. So I've made a sphere, which I'm just going to drag off the groups panel so I have a bit more control. this sphere is going to be our cutting sphere, but I'll make a copy of it for the eyeball later on. I'm going to drag the cutting sphere onto the head, so now the sphere is a child to the head. We're going to subtract children using the voxel method. That has worked. It's a little bit rough around the edges, so we can smooth that a little bit. If we make the old sphere visible and make it slightly smaller, we can hide that inside the head a bit more. So now we've got a cavity. We need an upper eyelid. So for the eyelid, I'm going to make another lathe. I'm going to come out sideways and then tilt up to the top. You notice my curve on there is a bit rough. So I'm going to select that curve and change my ruler mode to a circle arc and use the ruler. This ruler can rule straight lines, but it could also rule curves. So there I've used it to rule exact circle arc onto the eyeball. Oops. Now the eyeball appears inside the head, so we need to move it into place and rotate it up a little bit and maybe make it slightly smaller. Okay, so that's going okay. Another thing which would be quite nice, if before we're using any textures or anything, we can just make a pupil for the eye. So again, Control C, Control V, move that out. We're going to squash this down into a little lozenge shape, shrink it down and rotate it into place. A little bit of squash. Okay, so that eye works. The eyelid also works. Our head obviously only has one eye at the moment. Give it a quick save. So I'm going to use the mesh mirror tool to give us an eye on both sides. And we're going to copy the eyeball group. Give us an eye on both sides. Just notice that this could be a bit smoother. And that's getting there. Obviously the proportions are off, and if you wanted to fix your proportions, then it'd be a good idea to load in a picture of the Fazbear in the background. Just so you can sort of scale everything correctly. Just going to add a few little details. You could do these in a texture map, of course. If you press Shift when you're selecting the groups menu, you will actually select several things at once, so you can edit their colours and materials and such all at once, which is helpful. And do final mirror paste. Again, let's Shift select those parts. One more thing, let's add an eyebrow. Again, roughly sketch on the shape. Here I'm using a line object. Just going to drag that into position. Again, we can change the top and bottom sizes. So he's going to have a slightly frowny face. With the line selected, you can press S to smooth. Now I want to squash this eyebrow flat. I don't want it to have rounded ends. I want it to be basically a ellipse arc, so it's very regular. Yeah, so to squash it flat, if I use the scale tool on it, it'll not actually scale down because I'm only editing the curve rather than the whole mesh. So if I want to squash this eyebrow flat, I have to first convert it into a mesh. So let's do mesh, convert into normal mesh. And now when I squash it flat, there it's actually gone into a properly flattened shape. So that applies to lathes, spheres, anything really. If you're editing a curvy primitive, you've got to turn it into a mesh before you can distort it with scale or the other sculpting tools. Normally the other sculpting tools will automatically convert it into a mesh first for you. Okay, let's just apply a material to that. So I copied the nose object and now I'm going to paste the material, which gives it that same sort of shine as the nose. Then we're going to paste again, mirrored. And they're just going to bump up my background color. You can hold down where it says color, where it says base there. You can pick a color to edit. Let's give it give it a red to make it pop out. And finally, let's try just shifting these eyes around. I'm going to pop it into wireframe mode. So no, not wireframe mode. I'm going to pop it into hide this object with the H. Grab an eye, rotate the eye, grab the other eye, grab both eyes, give them a little rotation. Okay. Let's find the one I hid. There we go. Now everything is still completely selectable, so I could, for instance, grab and move all of these parts around if I needed to. Let's just tweak this a little. Okay, so there's a basic looking Freddy Fazbear, but showing off a few little tricks. Thanks for watching.